Greetings, small garden here for this Saturday day. How's everyone doing? And as always, this is this is a rando discussion today. So, I guess I'll hit you with something uh, pretty low low, nothing. We're not gonna do nothing heavy today. So, and without further ado, we will be talking about staying busy versus being busy. And I can sound like not tomatoes, apples and oranges, but in reality, it's not. It's actually very significant depending on how it applies to you. And how it applies is, you know, most people tend to say that they're busy. And, you don't really pay much attention to it as you should because I know usually busy is more of an easier way of saying I don't want to be bothered. But what are you really saying when you say that you're busy? Like, it can be at times easy to use having something to do as a reason to not do something, and that can within itself be an indicator that you are essentially just saying that I'd rather not be doing shit than to do shit, and I can, you know I guess depending on the type of person that's like a lifestyle choice. But I mean, I feel like, you know being it's rather to say it's rather I think it would be easier to say if you don't want to be bothered, you should just say I'd rather be doing nothing right now than to say I'm busy, because you know that's really an insult to people who actually are busy, and rather leads us into this definition of what it means to stay busy. And staying busy is really simply put, like not having the attention to pay somebody. And that's not necessarily meaning ignoring somebody. What I mean is you can get your point across that you don't have time to do something by simply doing what you don't have by simply doing what you do have time to do. And if what you do have time to do puts you in a position to it should put you in a position to not be around that situation where you would be essentially sold something to do um because someone may be impression that you don't have something to do. And this may not seem like a very significant bit of information, but it does put into perspective like how people can become lax in their own perspective. And not even for efficiency's sake, this is just for taking yourself seriously sake, because if your impression of being busy is not even putting you in a position to not need to answer that question that what are you doing right now, then it can you're basically encouraging people to bother you with you know essentially rudiment like not rudiment I guess I like that word. Is you're encouraging people to bother you with stuff. And this can depending on who you are, this can really annoy you or not really bother you, or for most people take up more time than it's worth. And like I said before, I don't mean to harp on efficiency's sake, because you should never try to make people a routine. At the same time, you shouldn't you should never find yourself upon somebody else's routine, especially if it's not something you wish to participate in. And on a all in all level, this is probably not the most important thing you'll be thinking about throughout your day. However, as you do go about your day, you should not, feel like you should definitely be aware of how busy you are on any given day of the week, because you know you using what you need to do as an excuse can mean a lot, because if you really do have something that's keeping you, wrapped up, then it's not an excuse. But if you're not, if what you're doing is not what I call mentally taxing, in the sense that if it does not require your full attention, then you cannot say that you're busy. At the same time, purposely applying your attention to menial stuff is also not a uh, uh, encouraged thing to do, because you are your time's importance to people is a reflection on what you choose to use it for. You can always tell when people don't value your time, when they prefer to use it to basically sell you something to do. But at the same time, if you're really honest about what you do, then it shouldn't be an insult either way. If you're really um not, you know, focused on what you're doing, and it's not a consequence of the work itself, which that doesn't necessarily have to be work, um then you shouldn't be bothered that somebody's uh basically noticing that you ain't really doing nothing, and they offer you an opportunity to do something. At the same time, if you are consumed in your work, then it should follow also that they get the same impression. And this applies to anything. I mean, I guess the next question is what dictates time consuming work. But I mean, there's so much to do in it where I couldn't even put a finger on it. Like I couldn't even put a map on it, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of bizarre hobbies out there. I mean bizarre. I mean like model shipping a model type stuff, and I'm like, nah. But yeah, you should always be conscious about um the language that you're using when you're talking about your time versus another person's time. Also, because you can easily come off as insulting to a person when you feel like your time, their time is inconsequential to your time, because you know, they most likely feel like their time is at least equal in value to your time. And you don't have to feel that way. You just have to acknowledge that there is a another opinion in the room. That's all. And that's how that works out. But I guess busyness in general is a topic of discussion in terms of why does it seem to build people up and put people down. Like it's easy to get involved doing something and feel like, you know, that is the most important thing in your life. It's also easy to also do something important and feel like um it is to do something and to feel like you are now you can now relate to everybody in the world. So you have to ask yourself, at what point do I feel like my time investment has paid off to something significant? And who knows what how this fact is for people, because like I said, the reasons for staying busy is also it's as numerous as the sand on the beach. I mean, I couldn't give you the end all be all, because there will always pop up another reason. I'll be like, you're right. But is there even a such thing as a busyness in which a person can say that their time has become more valuable than other people's? That's the real question I ask, because you know the opinion that your time is available to all people is easily accepted naturally. Um, but what would make a person feel like their time is uh restricted in terms of who is worthy of it? And I feel like that's just a consequence of how we tend to totem pole things. And that just comes with prioritizing. At the same time, you should not make your priorities the priority, because there will always be things that you should pay attention to when you have the opportunity to pay attention to them, such as you know having the opportunity to just take another person's time because it was given to you, versus taking a person's time because um you created the opportunity. So what I'm trying to say is you should always take into consideration that it may be a gift to take into consideration, to be taken in consideration. And this alone is very important, because you could find yourself very unsatisfied if the busyness of your work is not really busy, but you considered it busy, and then once you've invested all your good time in terms of there's always a graph, right? When you invest time into something, and those first I would say like the first, depending on how serious it is, the first 24 hours of something can make the difference between whether you felt like it was worth it, or you felt like, oh, that was stupid. And it's funny how um when you're talking about personal busyness, these ranges can vastly decrease or minimally increase when you're talking about personal pursuits. But once you introduce a second party into the situation, it can be funny how those ranges vastly increase and minimally decrease because you know when you have the opportunity to take somebody else's time, you're not going to be like, I'd rather just say fuck them. You'll probably be more into, okay, maybe I should take their time in moderation, and then, when things really start getting good, then I'll probably stick around even longer. But, that opportunity, it's funny how, it's easy for a person to feel like they are unreachable at times because of what they busy themselves with. But when you're busy with another person, it can feel like you got a good thing going because at any time you can decide that I don't want to take this person's time no more and dip off, and you're not gonna feel no type of way about it because if it's set up correctly, you're gonna be able to come back anyway. If it's not set up correctly, then that's probably gonna be on you also. But then again, I also found that that just goes back to people, over prioritizing their time because if somebody is making you feel like you gotta do a choice to take their time on their time versus taking their time on your time, then we back to that same old selfish perspective. Also, if you've had I feel like it helps when you've had a previous lesson with yourself on essentially prioritizing your time over other people's time because then you see why, okay, now I see why they don't care about my time now because I've already made it known that their time isn't as important as my time. So, you know, that probably helps too. But going back to the totem pole analogy, I feel like in terms of why things must be totem pole is because ultimately you're going to have to decide when you do stuff and why you do that stuff when you do it because there is no uh you can't be like, in my opinion, there is no real multitasking in terms of the idea that you're completing more than one task at once because you will always I math can't even put a number on this, but you will always prioritize one thing over another simply by how much time you invest in one thing over another. And time is going to be your only measurement by how you decipher this because um it's wishful thinking to think that if you could clone yourself all the problems in the world will fix, but it's not that simple because you know more people equals more time to be invested, and more time to be invested breaks the equation because the whole equation was supposed to be created so that you would, you know, erase the need for a time elimination equation in the sense that you will have everything done when you need it done, if you need it done, and that's just That's just a fact of busyness that in order to accomplish whatever you're trying to busy yourself with, you must busy yourself to unbusy yourself, which is contradictory, but it's just the fact of the matter. And if you ever do finally accomplish the unbusying yourself, you're just gonna find yourself back into that desire to get busy again anyway. So I could easily see how people fall into that trap that, I'm too busy for this or I'm too busy for that, yada yada yada. And this is, you know, it can be silly at times at how we tend to attach inconsequential things to how we relate to stuff in order to make the stuff more easy to deal with. And I say the easiest example of this would be kids. Parents have a tendency to overhype the situation in terms of how they busy themselves with their children, because they feel like it helps to make the process of dealing with your children easy, because the idea is that parents must essentially busy their kids to unbusy themselves, and that requires more busyness than it's worth, because you know if you have a job that you use to support your kids, the last thing you want to do is go home to another job in which you have to deal with your kids on a essentially an extended 9 to 5 basis, because the problem is you like the paradigm of having kids is that you essentially fix that problem that you had nothing to do, but now you got something to do, and then you put yourself in a position to want to have nothing to do again, because having something to do makes you feel like, uh, my time is useless. What's the point of my time being used for something if it's useless, because it's going to lead back to it being reused and reused and reused again. So you end up feeling like, dang, now I want to be the kid again. And it's funny because then you get that opportunity when you get older, and then you be like, dang, nah, I gotta keep myself, going and stuff. I want to hit the grave. And it's just funny because people tend to fall into that mountain and valley situation, in which first being busy is a mountain and being unbusy is a valley, and then being unbusy is a mountain, and then being busy is a valley, and then you get to a point when you realize that you've been essentially riding a roller coaster. And then it becomes, the ups and downs no longer become the focus. The end of the ride becomes the focus. And I feel like there should be I don't know, an endeavor for this, because work is not work until it works. And what I'm trying to say is that something you do should automatically reflect back onto you in positive ways, so that you do not feel like you are left out. Like, people are often unfulfilled by what they do because they have spent so much time. They either spend too much time making what they do fulfilling, or they spend not enough time unfulfilled by how they do it, how they work, and this can um this can discourage further endeavors to find fulfilling work because if your time makes you not want to use your time, the last thing you're going to do is look for things that use your time. And then if you're spending your time not using your time, you're just hurting yourself more because, you know, you're going to reach that point where you're going to be like, dang, I wasted all of that time and I could have been doing something. And then you don't. And then there is no reusing that unused time because it's already gone. So it's like, it's funny how staying busy can really like become complicated because you want to be busy to the point where you have the option of excess time. But if you have too much excess time, then you want to stay busy in something that keeps you, you know, focused and stuff. But at the same time, once you get presented with that opportunity, and then you in it, you can at times be, overtaken by the use of your time. And it's like a essentially like it's like having a full cup and an empty cup. You keep pouring the full cup back into the empty cup, back into the empty cup, and you keep trying to figure out, why do I keep putting this water in this empty cup when I got the full cup? But it's because you have that empty cup there, and it's just sitting there not being used. That you just be like, I might as well do something with it, right? So there's that, and to feed this analogy more, when you reach that point where you have something that explains why you keep filling that cup up, you gonna find yourself with more cups to fill. The same amount of water, but just more cups to fill. And how you fill up those cups ultimately gives you that purpose that you've been looking for. But it always starts with one empty cup. Once you figure out how to make that empty cup work, then you're able to introduce more empty cups, and then it just becomes a matter of just a matter of showing other people how to do it. Which can be a daunting task at times as well, because if you told some if you like, there always comes a sort of arrogance to be associated when you you figure out how to use your time, and then you try to use other people's time for them. And that can at times be like saying, oh, you don't know what you do with your time, let me do it for you. And that can easily come off as insulting as well. So it's like, it's to your advantage to try to include people in the use of your time, but at the same time it can be very delicate ground, because by trying to use your time to use their time, you're putting them in a position where you're making them think about the value of their time. And if you make them think about the value of their time, then you're already in a position where they may automatically just reject you total. And if you do that, then now they're not going to be privy to the idea of somebody trying to sell. They're not going to be privy to the idea of someone using their time to sell to them, because you've already messed up that opportunity. And then that person becomes wrapped up in basically validating their time. And that's, I feel like that's a hole that a lot of people don't get out of. The idea that they always they are always using their time to the best of their ability, and there's no other option as to how that time is to be used, because they've already created that option. And that type of rigidness and thinking is time consuming. It's like being busy with the thought of your own busyness, when in reality you're not even doing anything right now, because you're so focused on the idea that you're doing something that you've already accomplished nothing. And that can be it's a circular logic, but it's a circular logic that most people don't escape from. And I guess it works, right? Because the idea is that a circular loop, a loop's logic, right, is not the most is not the most a circular logic isn't the most well thought out, but at the same time it's often reliable in terms of what it uses to fall back on itself. Because a person which who has a certain amount of things that they do, and these certain amount of things they do balance out to essentially complete them, may not they may not, you know, be the best, the most the it may not be the determiner of, you know, what they do with their time in terms of the maximum potential. But essentially, if that's what the person chooses, then you can't really argue with them. So I guess the next question then becomes: Is it um is it to your advantage to try to open a person's loop? More importantly, is a loop the the end all be all? Then again, that's not even really a question, because you're gonna. I feel like everybody's gonna have a loop eventually, sorta, kinda, sorta. But then again, what differentiates a person from a loop versus something that's more of an oval in terms of that potentiality to include more things, is that it depends on the the size of the loop. Some people like to do, you know, a small amount of things to stay busy. Some people like to do a large amount of things to stay busy. Some people's loops are ever expanding. Some people's loops are conditionally expanding. Like they won't do they'll do it, but they'll do it under certain conditions. And this concept of looping busyness is something that is is that the way to do it? You will have to ask yourself. And you know, it can seem stupid at times to think about this, because you're thinking about what to do with your time when you could be doing
you could be doing something with your time. But if you knew what to do with your time, you would already be doing it. And if you're already doing it, why does anybody ask? Why do you ask yourself? No, why do you move yourself to do other things if you do that at all? And that's probably the unknown. It's like an unknown science. What makes someone decide that, you know, I want to do this, or I don't want to do this, or I want to stop doing this? And that can at times be a very uh, subjective question, because that you can't put a science on something that doesn't apply to any group of people at any time, because people are always going to decide what is the limit for them or what is not the limit for them. And this can oftentimes be a very finicky line, because a person's desire to do something is never going to be dependent upon another person's desire to do something, even if it is. And why that makes sense is because even if you decide to use another person as your cause and effect, you can always interrupt this cause and effect at any time. And that's just a habit of being a whimsical person. Like, I feel like we're all whimsical in the fact that we create loops of things to do, and then for some reason, whatever the reason is for you, we decide to interrupt that loop, add something, take something away, yada yada yada, or you could um do something you've already been doing differently. And it's all in the name of staying busy. And it's more of a phenomenon, really, because if you had all the time in the world, what would you do? Like, it's funny how at times people often blame wealth and stuff. If I was rich, yada yada yada, I do this, I do that. But I'm like, what's the point of saying if you was rich if you still will be limited by 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week anyway? So it's like, it's not even a matter of wealth. It's funny how busyness is not determined by wealth, even though we tend to associate the word business with economic uh economic duties, not duties, economic vocations and yada yada yada. But ultimately, like, wealth is not even, when you really think about it, is not even really a determiner, because you know time itself is it's simply an idea. It's not there is no math, there is no physical math to time. The sun will rise, the moon will rise, and it will just keep going back and forth forever. And this can be a is more of a distraction, because it makes you feel like the days don't really differ depending on how you view your day. And the fact is that they do, because what you do on any day of the week is up to you. You can decide. You can have a routine for the week and decide at any time during that routine to change it up. And once you do that, you've already occupied your business with a brand new toy. So it seems that busyness is a determiner of attention, and this attention is a concept that most people tend to lose value for because you know you paying attention to something for an extended period of time can within itself lead to you paying attention to how you pay attention. And this can it leads into a loop, and once you realize you're in that loop, the desire is going to be to escape this loop. But by trying to escape this loop, you put yourself further into the loop. So the question is busyness a loop that is attention based but ultimately time dependent? Because if you decided to just ultimately stop doing everything in general, I feel like your body would force you to start doing stuff. And it's funny because the idea that your time is not yours can be a very you know, it's kind of scary because if you told me that my choice to not to not make a choice can harm me, I probably wouldn't believe you until I put myself in a position. And then, it makes you take put into consideration, is busyness an actual determinant of life? Is it a like people often talk about a soul and afterlife and yada yada yada, but at the same time, there seems to be a specific entity around you in which everything is tied into something doing something. And once you reach this point that you have to do something in order to be something, and I say be something in the sense that you will expire very quickly if you choose to uh essentially mimic the habits of nothingness. And the fact that this is true, because you have to eat, you have to sleep. If you ignore these two things, your body will tell you, will either force you to sleep. It can't force you to eat, but it can force you to sleep. And sleeping does count as doing something. So it's funny how since birth you have been thrown into this world in which busyness is a life important concept. And the easiest way to capture this point is to think of a muscle. If you never used your muscles to learn how to walk in your life, and you finally decided at the end of your life, you probably wouldn't even have an end of your life because you will have to do something that reach a end of your life. So if you, with whatever time you have from doing nothing, if you decided at the last second to do something, would you be able to do it? And the answer would probably be no, because you spend so much time not doing something that the action of doing something, the physical process of trying to use a process that you have not developed will ultimately lead to your demise. And it's funny because if that's the case, then you know, am I? You have to put this whole thing in a perspective. Then, if everything around you has to do something, then what are you doing? Is there something? Is there something that doesn't have to do anything in the world? Is probably the next question, then, right? Because if you've already established that you have to do something, can there exist the opposite? Something that has to do nothing. And I feel like that's how people started to come up with the concept of a God, because you know, in order to be exempt from relying on doing something to get something done, you would have to be something which everything else relies on to do something. Something like that. And you know, this may sound like a circular logic, but pay attention to how I am attempting to essentially break the cycle, because if you could, you would first have to make a list of everything the bare essentials that you have to do to put yourself in a position to do nothing. And then once you've had all of these bare essentials done, the question then becomes what you know what would you do then once you've created nothing to do? And I feel like that will ultimately be a problem of society eventually, because you know the idea that first inspired society was you know doing something, and then it turned into doing other things, and then that it felt that what really pushed society, I feel like, was that once people started doing something, there was something to do, and then once there was something to do, it led to more things to do, and then that cycle kept repeating itself. People kept doing stuff, and they kept creating more things to do, and then here we are today. People. You got people that like to feel important. You got people that don't care about importance. You got people that essentially wait for somebody to make something important for something to be important. And it's funny because the idea that you wanting something to do is better than you not wanting something to do, than you not having something to do, can at times seem stupid, because you don't want to like, I don't feel like anybody wants to feel like they are more important than the next person, but at the same time, you have no choice but to develop these feelings, because you've been doing something for so long that you have become it's almost like a form of an obsession to do something, and then get used to doing it. So the question is, if you had the opportunity to break this obsession with doing something, would it be worth it? And I feel like my answer to that would be probably no, because if that's the case, then you know, once they, I, let me. This is the time to wrap up. Excuse me, but the concept I'm talking about is perfection. The idea that you've essentially reached that end of the line, and that end of the line is your your something to do. That like there's like I mentioned before, totem poles. What is the greatest something to do, and that probably would be having nothing to do. But once you reach that point of having nothing to do, was it really worth doing in the first place? And also, what that well, how would can a person physically manifest? Not even physically. Is it even possible to mentally manifest what it means to be perfect in terms of um, having everything that does something unrelatable to you versus versus what I was talking about before, which is everything doing something relying on you. That is the concept of God that is depicted. But I feel like the true concept of God is separate from how people are tempted to visualize it, because if something relies on me to do something, then that wouldn't have put me back into that loop of having to do something in order for everything else to have something to do. But that's just a deductive reason that is using a in most cases you would talk about a logic um not having proper reason to exist. In this case, we're talking about a logic that may not exist, because if something doesn't do anything, doesn't rely on anything to do anything for it, how could it exist? And that seems to be the grand theory of what ties everything together. The fact that there is a connection between everything, even if it's not connected to everything, it is connected by something. So something that is separate, can it exist in this world? And I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for listening. Much love to my supporters. I hope to shout you out very soon. Matter of fact, I'll probably see you today. If you do exist, and if you don't exist, I'll probably get you on Sunday. But we'll try. Thank you and have a good day.